We are live on the Chef Girl Nutrition Facebook page for another live cooking demo. I'm here live every Tuesday doing a seasonal inspired cooking demo. So these demos are intended to help you gain a little bit of confidence in the kitchen, amp up your skill set a little bit so that cooking becomes more efficient, more safe, and so that healthy food doesn't have to be so boring. So showing you some different ways to cook up your fresh fruits and veggies, different ways to flavor foods, different cooking methods to try to give your food different textures and flavors, and just bringing on a new meaning to what healthy eating really is. So we are, of course, right in the middle of fall, so we're talking all about fall ingredients, fruits and vegetables that are in season for fall. So today we're talking all about cauliflower. So we had a demo a couple weeks ago using broccoli. We made broccoli pesto. So of course, you can tell just by how it looks, cauliflower is in the same family as broccoli, so it's also a cruciferous vegetable, along with things like Brussels sprouts and cabbage. So our cruciferous veggies are loaded with fiber, which we know is good for our heart health, our GI health, our stomach, helping us be regular every day and have good gut health, which is very important. And of course, the fiber in these types of veggies helps to control our blood sugars as well. So having fiber as a part of every meal is a really good way to create balanced meals that create balanced blood sugars for us, to help us keep feeling fuller for longer. And giving us steady energy, giving us a good mood, good focus, all of these things that are super important. So fiber is a super essential nutrient, and it is one that we find a lot of in these cruciferous veggies. And of course, different vitamins and minerals in here that are great antioxidants, some anti-inflammatory properties. It's no secret that we should be eating our veggies, right? And most adults are not getting enough vegetables in. So that's one of the goals here with doing these kinds of demos, is that I'm giving you some inspiration for other ways to use these types of vegetables. So a lot of veggies they're really versatile, right? And cauliflower in particular is super versatile. So we can really transform these, our fresh fruits and vegetables, we can really transform them into, different kinds of things, sauces and pestos, and we can mash them up. So it doesn't just have to be mashed potatoes. We can mash up different root vegetables. We can really transform these things to make it different. So if you're not really a fan of just pieces of cauliflower, of just eating cauliflower florets that are cooked on your plate, there's a lot of different things that we can do with cauliflower so that we can still get the benefits of all of these nutrients that are in it in a different way. And even if you like eating cauliflower florets cooked on your plate, you might not always want to, right? But we want to be including more vegetables into our diet. And so there are different ways that we can do that. So today we are turning cauliflower into a sauce, and we're making a creamy garlic cauliflower sauce. So essentially, this sauce is kind of like an Alfredo sauce. But there is no cream in it at all. It's actually vegan for anyone who is vegan. So it's certainly vegetarian or vegan friendly. And the cauliflower itself is going to give us that creaminess, along with another ingredient in the sauce, which we will talk about as we start to make it. So it's just one of those things where if we can lighten up something, right? I'm never one to say don't ever eat the real Alfredo sauce, but we probably don't want to eat pasta loaded with Alfredo sauce every night, right? Because you just won't feel good. So an alternative to an Alfredo sauce is making a creamy sauce out of cauliflower. So I see it as, why not have an opportunity to get some more nutrients in and to lighten something up a little bit from something that's usually super heavy and can make us feel a little bit like after we've eaten it, right? So to start making our sauce, we have to break down the head of cauliflower into florets. So this is very similar to how we cut the head of broccoli into florets. The only thing with the cauliflower is we have to get rid of this base here. So I will zoom in to how I cut this up, and then we will get going with the rest of the sauce. So the easiest way that I find to do this is to first cut the head of cauliflower in half. So just cut it right down the middle, because now this gives us access to the whole stem here, and we can just cut it off. So then what I do is I just kind of score it right at the bottom here, and it just comes right off. Easy as that. And we will set that aside. So again, you just find the base right where the florets kind of stop right here, and just cut it, and it will just come right off. So that's the first step. And then we just need to get our florets. And like I said, this is similar to getting the broccoli off. So same thing, we're just gonna go around, some of them just kind of fall off, and just cut them right off the stems. And I just kind of go around to get a rough cut first, and then I'll go back and I'll cut some of the bigger ones smaller. The cauliflower is definitely a little bit like harder than the broccoli. The florets are a little bit hardier. Okay. And then we're going to cook the cauliflower. We're not going to make the sauce out of raw cauliflower. And we're going to cook it by boiling. So that's actually something that we haven't really done yet. So now I have all the florets here, so I'm just gonna cut these bigger ones. We're gonna just cut them smaller, right? We talk about always, we want, when we're chopping up veggies, we want them to be as uniform size as they can be so that they cook evenly. And this is all gonna get pureed anyway to make the sauce. So you can just really cut into them. They don't have to like be pretty looking florets. So the reason why we're boiling in this case instead of roasting is because we don't really need to get that caramelization, that flavor onto the cauliflower, which we get from roasting. We just need to get the cauliflower nice and tender to be able to blend up nicely to make a sauce. So boiling is just it's a quicker way to cook it. The cauliflower will get fork tender in about 10 to 12 minutes. Whereas if we were roasting it, it might take closer to like 20 to 30 minutes. You certainly could roast it. And again, like we always talk about, that would just give it a different flavor. And then that flavor would get imparted into the sauce. So you certainly could do that, and it would probably make the sauce taste delicious. But we're just to, it's just the icky piece. We're just gonna season up the cauliflower when we're making the sauce. So we just wanna boil it just to get it to fork tender. And fork tender means that we can stick a fork right through it without any resistance. So you shouldn't have to be pushing the fork in. It should just nicely slide into the cauliflower. You could also do that with a skewer. And of course, if your pieces are of different size, you want to check one that's on the bigger, on the bigger side, so that you know that if that one's done, they're all done. Okay, Oh, and also, so this is 1 head of cauliflower. We're using the whole thing. It should be like 5 to 6 cups of florets that we want for the recipe. So to boil the cauliflower, I have here already boiling 4 cups of vegetable broth or stock, just boxed stock, and 2 cups of water. So 6 cups of liquid total. You could do 6 cups of water and just omit the broth, or 6 cups total of the broth. But because most broths are in a 32-ounce box, that's 4 cups. So it just makes it easier than having to open another one and use only half of it, because then you always end up with a half a box of stock that you end up throwing away. So that's why I wrote it as doing 4 cups of stock plus 2 cups of water. The stock just, of course, gives some more flavor to the cauliflower versus just using water. So that's why I prefer it, but you can definitely use water. 6 cups of water. So that's already boiling. So we're going to just add the cauliflower in there. And like I said, it will cook for 10 to 12 minutes. So I'm using my spider strainer to submerge the cauliflower in, because you don't want to just dump it in and then get splashed with boiling liquid. So let me bring you a little closer here and make sure you can see. Okay, so I just submerge them in using the strainer. You could use a slotted spoon as well. And then we're going to use the same spider strainer or slotted spoon to take the cauliflower out of the liquid. We're not going to drain the liquid because we're going to use it to help make our sauce, to help thin out the sauce. So we want to just have something that we can, drain the liquid off of the cauliflower without having to pour it into a colander, because we want to save all the liquid here. Okay, let me turn the heat back up here. I turned it down. So we want this at a boil. You want to keep it boiling for 10 to 12 minutes. Let's just put a timer on. Okay. Then in my other pot here, I have, hold on. Okay, so in here, I know you can't really see. There we go. I have a half a cup of olive oil with 6 cloves of garlic. So this has just been sitting on a low heat. I started it at the same time that I started the liquid boiling for the cauliflower. They cook, about the same time, so it works out perfect. Set up your liquid to start boiling for the cauliflower, and then set up your olive oil with the garlic. So essentially what we're doing here is poaching the garlic cloves in the olive oil. So we're helping to soften the garlic cloves without them getting browned, or, we're not sauteing them or anything, but we're helping to soften them a little bit. And at the same time, we're infusing the garlic flavor into the olive oil. And we're going to use all of the garlic cloves plus some of the olive oil in the sauce. So that's where the creamy garlic cauliflower sauce comes from. Of course, if you're sensitive to garlic, you don't need to use this much garlic. If you're sensitive to it in your stomach, or you just don't love the flavor, you don't need to use all of the garlic. But it does impart quite a lovely flavor into the sauce. And then we're only going to use a couple tablespoons of that olive oil. So then you have a garlic infused olive oil to use for other things. Which is great for making like a vinaigrette or other kind of salad dressing. You can use it in a pesto. You can use it just to spread, on toast, or to dip bread into it or something like that. Something where you're really going to taste it, So you'll definitely have that left over. All right, so I'm going to put my cutting board aside. And while that is cooking, let's just touch on a couple other things about the sauce recipe. So I mentioned that the cauliflower itself is going to help create some of that creaminess for us. The other ingredient that we're using in here is cashews. So cashews actually help create a lot of creaminess in the sauce as well. If you think about it, it makes sense because we make nut butters, right? We make, peanut butter, almond butter, cashew butter. So when nuts are pureed, they get a very creamy texture because of the fat in them. So cashews are really nice to use in something like this. One, because of the color, they're white, so it doesn't affect the color of the sauce, whereas using something like pecans or almonds that have brown on them, that could affect the color, right? So using cashews is good for that. And they have a very mild flavor. So the cashews themselves don't really impart much flavor into the sauce, but they do help to make it really creamy without using cream. So one of the steps just to note in this recipe, if you make it at home, is we want to soak the cashews because it helps to soften them up a little bit, and will help in that blending process to help make the sauce even creamier. So just at the start they don't need to like soak overnight or anything because it's only a 1/4 cup of cashews. So just at the start of the recipe, like as you're getting, your liquid ready to start boiling and stuff, you put the cashews in a container like this, and some of them are floating at the top, but we just want, you just want them to be covered by like an inch of water. And then when we're ready to make the sauce, we'll just drain them, and that's it. And then in the sauce as well, we will have some lemon juice, salt, and pepper. And then, of course, the garlic and the oil, and some of the reserved liquid from the cauliflower. So I will say with the garlic oil, you don't want the garlic to get too browned. You don't really want it to brown at all. You should only see like very light bubbling around the garlic cloves. It shouldn't be like, you certainly don't want bubbles in the olive oil. Like you don't want it to be boiling at all. Keep it on a very low heat. And you can kind of like swish it around every now and then to kind of mix it in and make sure the garlic is not getting browned. Let's check the cauliflower. Okay, so to check the cauliflower, I'm just gonna stick a fork in there. Okay, it's not quite done. I'm gonna give it another couple minutes. Cauliflower's probably done now. Yeah. Okay. So let's celebrate the versatility of cauliflower by making our sauce. So we need a high-powered blender for this. I have my Vitamix here. Any high-powered blender will work. Not a food processor. A food processor won't blend it up smoothly enough. So definitely a blender for this. So we're going to take all of our cauliflower out and put it into the blender. Okay. So again, just using the strainer, drain the cauliflower. So all of the cauliflower is in the blender. Just be careful if you have a smaller blender, you don't want it to be filled. So like this is about as high as I would fill it. So if you have to, do it in 2 batches. And these tips that we're going to talk about with blending now are really are good tips to use if you're making like a cream soup or any time that you're blending something hot, right? So now this just came out of boiling water, so the cauliflower is really hot. You do want to take some safety precautions when you're blending something hot like this. So one of those is not filling the blender too high, because if it splatters, now you have like boiling hot liquid, and that's really could burn you, of course. So, okay, the next thing is scooping our little garlic cloves out of here. So again, just using the same spider strainer. So I'm putting all of the garlic in, and then we're going to add 2 tablespoons of the olive oil. And so then you just let this olive oil cool and then just store it in the fridge, and it'll keep for a while in the fridge. Okay, and then, so we want to, just gonna do, drain the cashews and put those in. We need a teaspoon of lemon juice. Ooh, some pulp in here. Okay. And a teaspoon of salt, and then a little bit of black pepper. Oopsie. So I just start with just a few. I always use freshly ground black pepper, so I don't really measure it. So I just put a little bit in, and then you can add more to taste. Okay. Then we need some liquid to actually get this going. So that's why we reserve the liquid from boiling the cauliflower. So I start with half a cup just to get it going, and then I add a quarter cup at a time until I get the sauce to the consistency that I want. So I usually end up using about a cup total of the liquid. So I'm gonna just add half a cup for now. So I just scoop it out with my measuring cup, pour that in. Okay. So the next hot liquid blender tip is to keep the hole at the top of the blender open, right? So it has the little top piece. We're gonna keep that open and cover it with a dish towel, a clean dish towel. This helps to let the steam escape, right? If this lid is on here and pushed all the way in, then the steam stays in, and that could cause I'm gonna say explosion. That's a dramatic word, but it could cause either the top to pop off, or it just traps the heat in there. So we want to let the steam escape a little bit. So put the dish towel here so that it doesn't, the liquid, you don't get a mess. Okay, and then we just want this to get nice and blended, thoroughly blended. So I start nice and low, and then we will increase the speed. So looking at it, and kind of depending on what you're going to use it for, you can decide how thick you want to keep it. And when it comes to actually using it, so like I said, I'm going to use it as a pasta sauce. So to do that, I'm going to cook the pasta and then add some of the starchy pasta water, right? That's what we've done, like when we made pesto pasta. That's how we thin out the sauce a little bit and help, really like marry it to the pasta so that it really sticks to the noodles. So by adding that liquid in, it'll help to thin out the sauce as well. So you can always, add more liquid to it when you're actually using it if it's too thick. But so right now it's definitely thicker than I want it, so I'm going to add another splash of the liquid and give it another blend. Okay. That garlic smells so good. Blender, it's very loud. All right. So that is that. So I don't know if you can see in the video, but all the smoke is coming out. So it's a good way to let it cool down. Okay, so this is our sauce. It's hard to show you, but this is the sauce. Nice, and it keeps that nice white color, nice and blended. And like I said, you can always thin it out again for whatever you're using it for. So you can use it as a pasta sauce. You can use it just as, you know, as a sauce, just for any kind of dish, like putting it on protein, mixing veggies in it. However you would use any other kind of sauce, you could use this sauce. And again, it's totally vegan. There's no dairy in here at all. I probably will put Parmesan cheese into it when I'm making it with the pasta, but you certainly don't have to. But you can tell even just from looking at it, you still get this really nice, indulgent, creamy, luscious sauce without being laden with, you know, all this added fat that frankly can just make you feel kind of afterwards, right? It's not always about just the calories and the fat and, you know, all of that kind of stuff that's in something. It's also about thinking about how it makes you feel. And you've probably had a really heavy, like creamy dish, and then you don't feel so hot afterwards, or maybe the next day you're a little like sluggish, right? So it's just thinking about those things too. So sometimes it's nice to be able to have these kinds of alternatives that you're not sacrificing flavor for, because it still tastes really delicious.